Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about some of the atrocities that Muhammad committed that are recorded in the Hadith collections and how Muslims respond to these. Now, typically you get two responses. One is it's out of context. Now they won't explain how it's out of context, what methodology they use to determine this, and further they won't explain in what context precisely it's okay to, for example, cut off the hands and feet of some criminals, brand their eyes with hot nails, and leave them out in the desert to bleed to death. They won't explain in what context it's okay to have intercourse with one's slave. They won't explain exactly what context it's okay to buy, keep, and sell black slaves. But all they know is it's out of context. Okay, second response is that that's a weak hadith. It's a weak narration. Now they won't explain again how or why it's a weak narration. And they won't explain the ad hoc nature of this in that all of the weak hadith, all of the weak isnad chains, the weak hadith, correspond precisely to those hadith which are also uncomfortable for Muslims to acknowledge. Again, it's a very ad hoc response, but there's a presupposition that goes under all of this, and I actually haven't seen it in writing this specific way until recently when I was surfing an Islamic website, something that I do in my non-existent spare time. So let's jump on this website and look at how Muslims handle some inconvenient hadith. All right. Is the hadith about the Prophet sucking on the tongue true? And the hadith in question is quoted by Musnad Ahmad. And it says, I saw the Prophet sucking on the tongue or the lips of Ali. Or that would be Al-Hassan, son of Ali. Okay, so this is the hadith in question. And it says, which I can't even believe. This is disgusting. And I do believe this is not real. So they've automatically rejected the hadith with no basis whatsoever. This is not real. I do believe it's not real, and it's disgusting. Tell me how I can justify my presupposition here, right? So that's basically this question. All right, so I really like this conclusion. We'll stop by this conclusion on the way to the answer that I want to talk about. It can be considered as an acceptable matter. How? By noting it as a miracle of the Prophet. Funny how many things in Islam are miracles. Not only is it okay for Muhammad to suck on the tongue of a young boy, it's miraculous that he could do so. Fascinating. Okay, enough of that nonsense. Let's go down to this quotation of the Quran here. But know by your Lord, they will not truly believe until they make you, O Muhammad. Funny how many times Muhammad is not in the Quran in the Arabic, but the translators have to insert him in there. They have to add to the words of Allah a lot, don't they? Judge, make you judge. That is, of course, talking about making Muhammad judge over them. And you're not true believers until you do this, and you have no discomfort in doing so. Okay, so a true believer has no discomfort in whatever Muhammad says or does. That's the justification from the Quran used for this answer. Muhammad did it, therefore it is not sinful. Talk about a question-begging response. Muhammad did it, therefore it is not sinful. So we're going to frame this video around this discussion. Okay, around this discussion that you just read, this answer more specifically of Muhammad did it, so it's not sinful. All right, so let's begin. Muhammad fought people for accepting Islam. He fought them until they said the Shahada. Spreading Islam by force. Doesn't sound like something very good, but Muhammad did it, so it must not be sinful. Muhammad ambushed villages of unsuspecting workers, shouting the familiar call, Allahu Akbar, if he did not hear the call to prayer. And that was his justification for attacking them. That doesn't sound like a very moral thing to do. But Muhammad did it, so it must not be sinful, right? Muhammad commanded to kill those who leave the Islamic religion. Muhammad commanded it, so it must not be sinful, right? Muhammad sent assassins to kill people who insulted him, like the Jewish woman who he had strangled to death. One wonders why he didn't do it himself. Maybe he didn't have the courage. But regardless, Muhammad sent assassins to eliminate the people who insulted him. Muhammad did it, so it must not be sinful, right? Aisha was taken to Muhammad's house to have sexual intercourse. She was taken from a swing, according to Sunan Abu Dawud, and her dolls were with her, according to Sahih Muslim. Muhammad had sex with Aisha when she was 9 years old. He was in his early 50s. If you do that in any modern society today, you will go to jail. However, Muhammad did it, so it must not be sinful, right? Muhammad saw the wife of his adopted son in a state of partial undress, and he liked what he saw. So he married the later divorced wife of his adopted son. And then he had a verse revealed from the Quran which made it all okay. Marrying the wife of your adopted son sounds creepy, doesn't it? But Muhammad did it, so it must be okay. Muhammad had sex with all of his wives and then took a single bath. Sounds like a good way to transmit various types of STDs. But Muhammad did it, so it must not be sinful, right? Apparently all of Muhammad's wives weren't enough, and he had sex with one of his slave girls. Having sex with a slave girl. Muhammad did it, so it must not be sinful. Muhammad struck Aisha in the chest and caused her pain. Now, this is interesting. I've heard an Islamic apologist respond to this. Maybe he didn't mean to. Maybe he didn't know that it would hurt her. Some prophet. Your prophet doesn't even know that striking a woman in the chest will hurt her. Anyway, Muhammad struck Aisha on the chest and caused her pain. Must not be sinful, because Muhammad did it. Muhammad said that most of hell was filled with women because they're mentally deficient. Muhammad said it, so it must be right. Muhammad commanded adult women to breastfeed adult men to relieve any sexual tension that might be between them. Muhammad commanded it, so it must be okay. Muhammad bought, owned, and sold black slaves. Muhammad did it, so it must be okay, right? Muhammad cut off a woman's hand for stealing. Muhammad did it, so it must not be sinful. Muhammad cut off the hands and feet of some criminals, and he burned their eyes with hot nails and then left them out in the desert to bleed to death. It sounds gruesome, but Muhammad did it, so it must not be sinful, right? Muhammad commanded Ali to go behead an individual who was accused of having sexual intercourse with one of Muhammad's slave girls. Now, Muhammad's slave girls were reserved for his sexual rights and no one else's. And so he had Ali go behead this man. But Ali just so happened to see this man unclothed, and the man was actually mutilated. He didn't have any genitalia. He couldn't have been doing this with Muhammad's slave girl. And so Ali left him alone. But Muhammad commanded that the man be beheaded. Some judge who doesn't examine the facts before he hands down the verdict. Oh, but Muhammad commanded that this man be beheaded, this man who had no genitals, who couldn't have been having intercourse with one of his slave girls. Muhammad commanded it, so it must be right. This is the type of question-begging, absurd arguments that Muslims use to justify the things that they see in the hadith about Muhammad. Now they'll respond, what about the prophets in the Bible? They did horrible things too. Absolutely they did. They're called out by God for it and judged. There's no verse, there's no exhortation in the Bible to say, follow David, do everything just like him. He's the best example for mankind. There's no verse that says, follow Moses, he's the best example for mankind. No, but Christians are to follow Jesus. He is the best example for mankind. Infinitely better than all of us, and infinitely better than Muhammad. So the difficulty here with Islamic theology is that they have this man who they are not true believers until they submit and find no discomfort in submitting to everything he said and did. And then you have the Quran in Surah 33 saying that Muhammad is the best example for mankind. Yet he did numerous abhorrent things, only some of which I've taken the time to cover here. So I would just ask Muslims a very simple question. Given all of the things that Muhammad did in the Hadith, or specifically just the ones that I've covered here in this video, do you find any discomfort in any of this? Or is it all okay? Are you so committed to your presupposition that Muhammad did it, so it's not sinful, right? Are you so committed to that presupposition that you will not condemn a single thing that Muhammad did? It's a tough question, because you're left to approve of all of these moral atrocities on one hand, or you're left to say, actually, no, I'm not comfortable with some of this stuff. And if you aren't, then you aren't a true believer, according to the Islamic worldview. What an atrocious system of beliefs. What an atrocious man. What a morally abhorrent man, Muhammad. Yeah, this is why I choose Jesus. There's simply no comparison. And this is why I choose the God of the Bible. Thanks for watching.